Hang on. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. I'm delighted to actually have experts on the panel. You don't always get that in a lot of these sessions these days, but we're really going to basically talk about a very serious subject, but in also a very positive way. And I think we're quite lucky and rather fortunate to be able to talk about this type of topic, but also how it's changing a lot of the studies and a lot of the treatments that are going on right now, focusing on breast cancer, but you'll also learn a little bit more about that and how it's affecting other studies that are going on and other treatments that are playing into the system. And the nice thing is that it's actually built on Salesforce, which is something a little bit different. So set a little bit of a stage, but let's introduce you to who the people are that are going to share the information, I guess. There's a lot of detail there. Meredith, a little bit about you. We'll get into the program, but maybe just your background and what's going on at UCSF in a very light way. And just maybe let us know a little about yourself.
Sure. So hi, I'm Meredith Buxton. I'm on the faculty at the University of California, San Francisco, and I'm the executive director of the I-SPY trials, which is a series of linked trials designed to accelerate the identification of promising new agents for women with high-risk breast cancer. And I've been with the program for about 13 years, since its real infancy, and was very active in the development of and implementation of I-SPY 2, which is the sort of central trial or the real flagship of our program. And we're going to spend most of our time today talking about those efforts.
Excellent, excellent. Thanks, Meredith. And also your partner in crime, I'll say that. Julia, it always takes a team to do a lot of these things. So Julia, a little bit about yourself and the program.
Sure. So I'm the Director of Operations for the I-SPY program, and I oversee the day-to-day activities of our vendors and our sites. I have been with the program for 8 years, so I started before I-SPY 2 was up and running, and I actually started in a different role as a clinical trial coordinator. So I, in fact, enrolled the first patient onto the I-SPY 2 trial, which is the trial we'll be talking about today.
That's fantastic. And then the other piece is you're hearing acronyms. Obviously, Salesforce is all over the acronyms, but also even in your programs, I-SPY 1, I-SPY 2. We'll explain what these mean in a little bit more detail. But again, figuring out what the higher opportunity is here for the people that are involved, for the medications that are involved. So we'll kind of touch base on a lot of those different aspects of it. But all the information that we're talking about now is built on Salesforce. And we brought Chris with us, who actually helped put a lot of this stuff together. Do you want to provide a little background about yourself and the program?
Sure. Well, I mean, I actually, I came in after a lot of the development was done, so it's been a tremendous learning experience for me to see all the work that these two have been a part of for years running before I came in. And so I'm a technical architect. I've been in and out of the Salesforce environment for about 10 years, working either outside of it or building integrations or customizing or whatever it takes, really, integrating with ERP systems, large enterprise systems. But coming into this space, it's been interesting because healthcare is its own bubble. It has its own challenges, its own things that kind of move the dial, so to speak. Some of it's political, some of it's money that really has to help drive it, some of it's resources and resource concerns. And so I think, as a technical architect, my background being something that is very much in code, is very much technical, is about systems. There's so much more of a people element that I've seen in this, which has been profound, and was really the reason that I was inspired to work on this in the first place. And I think that what we've seen with this is so much innovation technically, which has really just been amazing, and in many ways has also influenced some decisions that have even reached beyond their own project, which we can of course get into later. But I think being able to be a part of that and understand what's happening and coming into a project that's several years old, and as an architect really digging into it and understanding the infrastructure has been really kind of both a challenge, but also really kind of honored to be a part of it. Thank you.
And one of the key aspects, as you've heard from Salesforce, especially over Dreamforce, is a lot of the compliance and making sure that the governances are in place. And that's hugely critical for the information we're dealing with, for the accuracy, also the accessibility, because there's various people within the teams that should and should not be seeing some of this information. So it's quite particular to deal at that level and make sure, again, the architecture is there, the information is there, and the access is there to really make sure that everything is fulfilled here. You're probably wondering who I am. My name's Ethan Alexander. I help run the business development side of Oktana, and we are a sort of an added resource, a certified component of Salesforce itself, and we provide development services, both front end and back end, to literally make those Salesforce components work. The team is not always as filled out within Salesforce, so we often step in to make sure that everything is handled properly, on time, on schedule, and then we work basically as a team throughout the deployments.
I'm going to put a little plug in for that.
There's a plug. We take plugs from everybody.
So it's because of how well connected Oktana is,
Yes.
and their past experience and their background working with Salesforce and just the environment at large, that I actually came into this position to begin with. Whether I'm Oktana employee or otherwise, that was the reason that I came to it. So I just want to put that plug in.
I mean, Chris is exactly right. Actually, my role, I actually was part of the first company ever acquired by Salesforce, and I had an opportunity to work just as we were acquired, even before we were acquired in the mobile project, to work with the Oktana team and actually get a lot of these applications finished and our integrations into the platform. So I have firsthand experience, and that's partly why I'm helping them out today. So it does make a big difference to actually go through that, but and also see the level of expertise. You can get things done very quickly. So we're happy to help is what we're trying to say. Let's move into the details now, because I think it's an incredible program. We've talked about iSpy 1, we've talked about iSpy 2. There's probably a little bit of confusion. How about we start at that high level, Meredith maybe, and kind of what's going on? What was sort of the key kickoff and interest and sort of hope for the whole program?
Sure. So, we've made a lot of strides in breast cancer over the years, but we still know that 30 to 50% of women who are diagnosed with breast cancer die of their disease. And it takes 10 to 15 years to bring a new drug to market, and they've estimated about $2.5 billion. And we know that's part of that problem is about 70 to 90% of these drug registration trials or these drug approval trials that are the phase 3 trials fail. So we knew we had to do better. We had to do better for the companies to get them to continue to be interested in developing drugs in this market. And we had to do better by our patients. We had to be able to provide them with the kind of care that they deserved. So iSpy's mission is really to change the way that we test new drugs. And what we've done is we've developed a framework for the way to efficiently and cost-effectively evaluate new drugs. And we've done this by bringing together a big partnership we've gotten pharmaceutical companies to play in the same sandbox, academic centers. We've brought in the FDA and the National Cancer Institute, patient advocates, to all come together to try and build this model with us. And what was important to us was not only to learn quickly, but learn more efficiently. And so we've developed a model, an adaptive design. It's a statistical design, a Bayesian adaptive design, where we learn as we go. So as every patient goes into the trial, the information about that patient informs the next patient's assignment. And that information and getting that real-time data is really an important tenet or focus of our trial. And we also needed to create processes to collaborate with all of the groups and get them to participate in this big network. And so we needed also IT solutions to help us with that. So iSpy is really about accelerating the way that we do clinical trials. It's really about a model that other disease areas could replicate in the way that we learn faster and learn more efficiently.
Absolutely. Julia, was there any components of, I mean, first of all, you're talking about the FDA, pharmaceutical companies, patients, all this different, did they want to do this? Was that something like, yay, we can't wait? Or was it kind of like a bit of a pull, bring it all together? Or what sort of changed that relationship?
I think the most important thing that we did was bring everyone to the table in the very beginning and really get everyone's input and really get them to commit that this is the path forward, that we really needed to make the change, that the way that we were conducting our clinical trials wasn't working. And everyone was suffering from that. And so in that, we were really able to work collaboratively together and re-engineer the clinical trial process, which is really what the iSpy model is about.
Absolutely. And one critical piece of this puzzle is that you literally changed the way treatment was handled and then proving that model out. Am I correct, Matt?
We changed the way that patients are assigned, and what we did was we knew that the way that trials are traditionally run is that these agents are tested in late stage disease. So these are stage 4 metastatic patients. And we really wanted an opportunity to bring these drugs earlier on. So our trials are done in the neoadjuvant setting. So this is when new patients are just diagnosed, and really trying to make a difference at that time when we think it matters the most, and really hoping that we can cure the disease.
I can only imagine also just the human relationship side of that too, where there's first of all the diagnosis, the confusion. Everybody wants data. Like what has worked before for other people, what can work for ourselves or our family members. So I think it makes a huge difference. And then taking that obviously transitions into technically how do you do that? And I know that Meredith, there's other products out there that are typical, I guess, in healthcare. What did something kind of change for like maybe leaning towards Salesforce or something that actually made it a little bit different?
Well, as I mentioned, we need to learn quickly and learn early, and we need to use the information from every patient to inform the assignment of drugs to the next patient. So we really needed a system that was flexible and adaptable and could grow with us as the trial grew, and also provide us with real-time data. We weren't seeing other solutions that were able to provide us with an opportunity to look at data and authenticate it and verify it in real time, and other solutions that allowed us to have such a metric-driven approach. So we really, as I said, speed and efficiency is important to us, and any data that we can use to inform that is helpful. So that's really why I think we moved in this direction.
No, I think it's fantastic. And I know, Chris, we also want to show some of the screenshots of what the product looks like. And this is actually kind of the journey we go on in sort of the consulting side to understand what is needed, not only by sort of the core group of people, but the ancillary groups that are part of that. In this case, federal agencies, pharmaceutical companies, patients themselves, and putting that into a very flexible environment, which obviously is Salesforce, but not really thought of in a healthcare world. I mean, Chris, kind of going through this process, putting these things together, custom fields, custom pick lists, all the stuff we're kind of used to. Is there something else that kind of jumped out that made a difference for the team?
Well, there's definitely some things that I've learned as they've described their journey and what they've gone through. I think one of the things that Meredith and Julia told me right off the bat was that there's access internationally, real time,
Exactly.
to the data, right? And that's something you get with cloud technologies, to be fair. And if you were to go out and look today, you would find some technologies that exist in the cloud that focus on clinical trials and do some clinical trial management. So they could offer that kind of solution to you. And certainly anyone can build their own, say, using things like the Google Cloud App Suite or Amazon Web Services, speaking to the technology side. But certainly one of the things you get with Salesforce is the constantly evolving nature of the services that it offers, some of which aren't necessarily originally built focusing on healthcare, right? So to speak to that, one of the things that was used pretty much as soon as they could find a way to make the teams collaborate was Chatter. And Chatter in Salesforce was not, it wasn't intended for healthcare initially. It wasn't intended for clinical trials, right? It was just intended for team collaboration, whatever that looked like. So it could have focused on service or sales or managing cases. But in this case, it's being used for something that's much, much broader and perhaps something that Salesforce had never thought of when they first came up with it, right? And when I say internationally, I mean you'll see a map on one of the future, one of the next slides that covers the breadth of the sites that are all engaged in this program, and all the individuals at these individual sites that are able to basically share data in a way that you might get on some other systems by kludging some pieces together.
No, even the language aspect. I mean, this is something that's international. So the idea of being able to translate the information, French, German, anything we might need out there. And we actually have a map of that. We'll get a little bit more into that detail as well. And we're kind of jumping to some of these different components here, but I think what really gets to the point is, how do you prove something works? How do you actually can show the data is being reliable and set up properly in the system? So I know that a little bit later on we also have some dashboards, but before we get to the dashboard aspect, what were some of the key criteria that to make this really successful, what was going to need to stand out? Julia, maybe?
So we really needed, as you'll see in a little bit, in iSpy 2, we have 14 clinical institutions that are participating